Hello and welcome to our Instagram Live today. My name is Sarah Sharpe and I'm Senior Nutritionist with Nutri Advanced, and I'm just going to bring Joe Gamble into our chat. So Joe is an expert in all things detox. So let me see if I can bring her in. There we go. The invite is sent. So, oh, here she is. Let's see. Okay, so I've sent the invite, Joe.
How are you doing, Sarah?
Hi, it's worked. That's a good.
Instagram is always the way to go. It always works well in Instagram lives.
Yes, definitely. So glad that you could join us. As everybody knows, this is a really busy time of the year for all things detox. So we've brought along Joe Gamble, who is the expert in all things detox. Do you want to just explain a little bit about what it is that you do and what you do in your clinic with regard to detox?
Yeah, so I'm a functional medicine practitioner. Functional medicine means dig down deep and understand why. So, what is the root cause of imbalance, of disease? And whilst I wouldn't say I advertise to clients come and see me for a detox. What I do, Sarah, is look at why people get sick, and toxicity is the root of almost all diseases, at least to a certain extent. It might not be the only catalyst, but generally in disease, many parts of our body have gone out of imbalance. So whether that's a cancer, whether that's neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's, dementia, cardiovascular disease, there's usually a multifaceted why behind it. And truthfully, if somebody goes to see their conventional doctor, the doctor's looking for a single pill for an ill philosophy. So you've got a headache, I'll give you ibuprofen. But my argument is you're not deficient in ibuprofen. There's a reason you've got a headache. And yes, granted, the ibuprofen might work today, but if you wake up tomorrow and you've still got a headache, what then? You take more ibuprofen and more ibuprofen. And actually, what we want to look at is, why have you got the symptoms in the first instance? And toxicity in the world that we live in today is very much one of those multiple facets that we have to, as practitioners, dig down deep and understand what's going on with that individual.
Absolutely. So for all the people listening who are used to hearing detox as kind of probably a starvation diet involving juices of some kind, how would you explain the difference between that kind of detox and what we would try to do with functional medicine in terms of supporting those those detoxification pathways?
So we'll be really simplistic when we talk about how the body detoxifies, so that we can all understand it. So if we say that we split our ability to clear toxins into two sections, section one is creating rubbish. So just like we all do every single day, we create rubbish, we throw it in the trash. Section two is when the dustbin men come and empty the wheelie bins. And that balance needs to be quite harmonious. Now, we've just got through Christmas. How many people had bags full of rubbish and the wheelie bin men were taking a holiday? So therefore, they were building up a bucket load of extra rubbish. So think of that same philosophy for our detox system. So phase one, we're coming into contact with toxins. Those toxins might be herbicides and pesticides sprayed on our food, might be pharmaceutical medication, not that we're saying stop them, but it's just a fact to take into consideration, might be chemicals that we're cleaning our house with, or in things like perfume or beauty products, might be alcohol, might be caffeine. So these are all some of our toxins. So that's phase one, that's filling up the trash cart. Now, phase two, just like many councils, we'll split that into different sections. So we've got our regular waste, we've got our paper recycling, we've got our garden recycling, food, etc., etc. it's exactly the same in our body. We have different pathways to clear those rubbish through. And unfortunately, for lots of reasons, some of us aren't well balanced between the creating and the emptying. Now, one of the factors that is essential for those two parts of the detox to work is key nutrients. And those nutrients include protein, include fiber, and include certain essential nutrients. And if we're devoid in them, Sarah, then we don't do a very good job of emptying the trash. So then what happens is this rubbish builds up. And actually that is so toxic to our body. It's what we call a metabolite that's very reactive. So basically it's overflowing, it's rotting, it's smelling, and we've got no means of cleaning it. And that's what happens in our body. So yes, there's lots of great advertising. Instagram is absolutely perfect for that. But some of these detoxes that are out there, which, you know, you've got to maybe have a look at what's the rationale behind what's driving the adverts. And quite often it's a financial rationale, you know, buy our juice packet or something like that. Are they giving you the essential nutrients for these different parts of your pathways to work effectively? And the answer to that is very often no. So yes, you might lose weight quite rapidly, but is that always a sensible thing? No, because actually what you're doing is drowning in your own trash. And that doesn't sound like a very pretty clearance pathway to the body. So what the difference between what functional medicine looks at from a detoxification purpose is, first of all, find out your own unique ability to clear trash. And that's based on your genetic makeup. So some of us are less good than others at clearing that trash. How might you know that? Let me give you some examples. Me and you both have a general anaesthesia, Sarah. We have the same amount of anaesthetic. You wake up and you say, where's my cup of tea and a piece of toast? And I'm being as sick as a dog. I don't clear those drugs from my system very well. You clear them fine. You get over it really quickly. Me and you both go out for a coffee at 11 in the morning. You're still awake at 2 because you're struggling to process that caffeine. I left, you had 4 double espressos, and I'm sleeping like a baby at midnight. I'm really good at processing caffeine. You might not be so good at processing caffeine. I go into a lift with somebody with very strong smelling perfume on, I get a banging headache. Or I go to fill up the car with petrol, get a banging headache. They're all signs that our body is telling us that we might not be very good at detoxification. Now, the way I describe it and work through it with people is, think of it like a bucket. And we all have a bucket. Some of us, that bucket is a different shape and size. So some people's bucket is more effective than others. And we all fill that bucket up. And we should be able to empty the bucket. So now we're going to visualize a tap at the bottom. Fill it up at the top, empty at the bottom. But what happens if your tap's jammed? Because you haven't got the ability to clear it, because maybe you haven't got the right nutrients. And you're merrily filling it up and filling it up and filling it up. And then all of a sudden, you start to get symptoms in your body. And those symptoms can be so varied, from headaches, nausea, fatigue, muscle pain, muscle stiffness, chronic diseases like autoimmunity, of course, diseases like cancers. It might be that you get changes in your mood. It might be that you get other more acute symptoms developing, like even down to things like pulsing headaches or tinnitus can all be associated with toxicity. And that, to me, is a sign your bucket is not doing what it needs to. Either you're filling it up too fast or you're not emptying it enough. And therefore, we need to work to lessen the in and make a more established out. And without the key nutrients, Sarah, that is not going to happen effectively.
Yes, and so which nutrients what are our key players in terms of helping us to support those detoxification pathways?
So glutathione is our master antioxidant when it comes to detoxification. And again, sadly, some of us aren't as good at making it as others. Plus, when we get to about the age of 30, which I'm convinced of myself, I'm not there yet, but you know, my wrinkles are going to tell us otherwise. We become less effective. So younger people are more effective, older people less effective at building it up within their body. Plus, glutathione needs certain building blocks, things like selenium. And unfortunately, selenium is quite poor in the diet. Used to get a lot of selenium. Our grandparents would have got a lot of selenium from soil, where farmers would have rotated their crops and left a field empty to let the soil cultivate lots of nutrients, and we all know that doesn't happen. So where we used to get most of our selenium from was root vegetables. Truthfully, root vegetables are pretty much devoid of selenium. So that's a key building block. And actually, many of us are deficient in that key building block. So we can either start with a building block like selenium. Another big important building block is called NAC, N-acetylcysteine. Again, not great sources of food. So we really need to think about getting this outside. So supplementation. Milk thistle is another key nutrient for detoxification. Now, I must say, please, if you are on pharmaceutical medication, do get advice. Call Nutri Advance. They can help you with this because there are what we call drug nutrient interactions, and therefore it might not be suitable for you. But they are really important key players. In addition, like I said, Sarah, to that all important protein, we certainly support people using a protein shake that's designed for detoxification. So it's a very simple way to get that bolster amount of protein in if you're wanting to support that detox process. Fiber. Now, really, you should be able to get enough fiber from your diet, but I would hazard a guess, if you're eating more of a typical Western diet, you might not be getting enough fiber. It comes from your vegetables, your salads, your fruit, your whole grains, and a lot of people aren't getting enough of it. And that fiber acts a bit like, I always describe it to my clients, like one of those green and yellow sponges that you wash up with. You've got the green bit that cleans the pans. It also cleans the colon, cleans the waste. And then you've got the yellow bit that absorbs the water. And that's exactly what happens with fiber. We've got our soluble and our insoluble to clean the colon and bind the toxins and get them out of the bowel. So we can absolutely get that through food, but we need to work a bit harder. I would also say key players from food are your herbs, your culinary herbs, particularly rosemary, coriander, basil. Adding them to foods is such an easy and cheap way to be getting your body detoxifying. I will say though, always opt for organic where herbs are concerned. If you've grown them in your garden, you know how easy it is for the slugs and snails to get them. Farmers are going to heavily spray those crops to stop them being eaten alive. And especially if they're dried, you've got no way of getting those herbicides and pesticides off because they're freeze dried with the toxins in. Of course, you're going to put them into your food. You're going to absorb all those herbicides and pesticides. So it's a bit counterproductive.
That's great. And what other things can people do other than nutrients to help support? So there's various different lifestyle techniques we can use to support detoxification too.
Breathing. Our lungs are part of our detoxification system. So unfortunately, in the stressed world we live today, many of us are quite what we call dysfunctional breathing. And it might not be pathological like asthma or COPD, but actually, you just heard me differentiate between my talking breath and actually working on my breathing. So I always say, just really trying to focus on little snapshots. Me, I spend most of my day on Zoom, but what I always do is when I end one call and start the next, I do some deep breathing. I've also got plants all in my room with me, and they're great for producing oxygen. So the more indoor plants that you can have, the more oxygen available to you. Dry skin brushing. Now that's a really effective way to start moving your lymph around your body. It's very cheap. You can get a dry skin brush for less than £10 and really work on. So brush your way up towards the heart. So arms in, legs up. So do the backs, do the fronts of your arms and your legs up your abdomen towards your heart. Ideally a long-handled one. And then you can also bring it up your back. Hot cold showers. Now today this might not feel very enjoyable, but very effective. And you know, when I always use hot cold showers is if I feel I'm coming down with something, I really pummel the cold at my chest and at the same part at my back. And you know what? If I get there quick enough, that really does wonders for kind of clearing my whatever virus is in my like lymphatic system. But trying to do that on a daily basis. So I always go, get in the shower, have a wash your hair. Cold water on your hair is not enjoyable. And then turn the shower to cold, count to 10, turn it back to warm, count to 10, back to cold, and always try and get out the shower when it's been cold. Again, I know it's nice. Make sure you've got a nice snuggly towel there ready. Baths, adding things into your bath. So Epsom salts. Epsom salts contain sulfur molecules. They've got magnesium bound to sulfur, which really helps with that phase 2, the wheelie bin men part of our detoxification system. So adding in a cupful of Epsom salts. Apple cider vinegar baths is another one. Again, a cheap intervention to be doing around that. Exercise, which comes back to the lungs and using the lungs, and also sweating. And then anything else that induces sweating. Now we're it was interesting actually, Sarah, yesterday at lunchtime, we had, I think Radio 2 on when I was having lunch break, and they were talking about excess sweating on like a doctor call-in. And I didn't catch all of it, but somebody was calling in talking about all the like aluminium deodorants and Botox that they'd had underneath their armpits. And actually we're sort of like, oh, sweating's horrible. And it's like, no, sweating is part of our detoxification system. So deodorants, antiperspirant deodorants that block up the pores in your armpit is actually counterproductive. And many of those toxins then start to drain down into the breasts. So us women, risk factors to breast cancer. So actually encouraging sweating, exercise, saunas, far infrared saunas. These are all different techniques to support detoxification. There's other things out there, but I think I've given you quite a few that you go, yep, I can do an Epsom salt bath 3 times a week. I can do hot, cold showers a couple of times a week. I can breathe every day. And actually, most of them, Sarah, pretty much costless.
Absolutely. And just a note for anyone who does want to take any supplements, or you've got further questions about supplements, then you can book an appointment on our website with one of our nutrition advisors, and they can tell you about the different options at Nutri Advanced, talking through some of those nutrients that that Joe's mentioned today. One thing that a lot of people do with a detox as well is to really focus on a detox for a week or so, and then they're like, I'm done now. I don't need to think about these pathways. What would you suggest to people to try and maintain this kind of support?
Okay, so yes, that's a classic example of breaking your fast with 4 pints of beer. You're going to feel pretty rough after that, more rough than you naturally would. So I always say, I'm not a believer in New Year's resolutions. I think it's scientifically proven by about now, most people have broken their New Year's resolutions. But now is a great time, maybe after indulging over the Christmas period, to go, does my body need a bit of extra love, care and attention, which is what this is all about. But whilst you might have a focus like couple of weeks to really go, okay, I'm going to take out my social toxins, so alcohol, caffeine. I'm going to take out those more reactive foods like gluten and dairy. What you don't want to do is just throw everything back in all at once. First of all, this is a really great opportunity, especially if you have got any symptoms like gut symptoms or headaches, and maybe those symptoms have improved. It's a really great opportunity to try and decide if there are certain foods or even components within the foods that are driving those symptoms. So what we generally advise is, let's drop in components within those foods one at a time. So let's take dairy. If you're going to have well, you've taken out dairy, you've taken out gluten, for example, and you're going to have a pizza. What you've got there is you've got wheat, you've got the cheese, tomatoes, which are part of the nightshade family, which are also for some individuals quite reactive. Very healthy for lots of us. They contain an ingredient called lycopene, which is incredibly powerful antioxidant, but for some people, they cause reaction. A pizza is covering loads of different ingredients. So what I would generally advise is, let's trial things one at a time. So if you go, I don't think milk's my problem, let's just put milk in. Have I do nothing else for 2-3 days? Have I got any gut symptoms? Have I got diarrhea? Have I got bloating? No, okay, I've touched base with my body. I'm going to try cheese because the protein structure of milk and cheese is different. Again, touch base. Oh no, I've become more snotty. Right, okay, let's take cheese back out. Let's try something else. Let's try eggs. Maybe we need to separate egg yolk and egg white because quite a lot of people react to one component within the eggs. It's a really great experiment to try and find out what foods you personally are reacting to. And then go, what else have I done better at during this period of time? I've drank more water. Well, I mean, come off it. If you've trained yourself to drink more water, you're going to turn around and go, I'm going to stop drinking water. No, we need to carry on drinking water. So that's a great one. Maybe during this time, you've really focused on quality and quantity of sleep. The body needs a minimum of 8 hours to repair itself, to clean up at night. And I know for so many people, sleeping is seen. We're both parents, Sarah, aren't we? We've both had that intense sleep deprivation. Sleep is seen as a luxury item. And can I reframe that and say, no, sleep is essential. And if you are struggling with sleep at night, maybe it's your sleep problem or you've got a child that doesn't sleep, is there an opportunity to catch up on that sleep elsewhere? Because we need a minimum of 8 hours in a 24-hour window. So if you're only getting 6 at night, is there an opportunity to take a nap in the day to marry up that and get your 8 hours sleep? But during that sleep, we clean up our body. So if we don't get it, our body remains dirty. And that's another reason why toxicity, your shape and size of your bucket becomes dysfunctional. So if you've worked really hard on establishing a good bedtime, make sure you stick to it. If you've said, okay, I've not drank alcohol for 2 weeks or maybe the whole of January, is it sensible to come back drinking alcohol 7 nights a week? Alcohol is a carcinogen. I know it's an enjoyable carcinogen, but it's not a carcinogen. Can you say, I'm not going to drink alcohol Sunday through to Thursday, and I'm going to limit my alcohol to Friday and Saturday? Still trying to avoid binge drinking, but I'm going to enjoy a really nice bottle of dark red wine, of which we can argue, Sarah, is full of resveratrol and therefore has some benefits. But I'm not going to drink 7 days a week because that alcohol is filling my bucket up more effectively. So I always say, what are your personal take homes? I've taken loads of people through our program here at Nutri Advance, our cleaning up program. And every year I do it with them. And every year I take one more thing and I go, that's one more behavior. So please do not think you've got to gain all of these behaviors all at once. Maybe you're going to do a 2-week cleaning up period now, and then maybe you're going to do another one in April or before your summer holiday or after your summer holiday. And each time just pick one behavior that you go, I'm taking that one with me. I'm going to try harder to really get that established.
No, that's fantastic. So we have had just a couple of questions to finish. So somebody's asked if you can recommend the best type of glutathione. Is it liposomal better than capsule forms?
Okay, so there's different benefits to both. Here at Nutri Advanced, we've got a very good formulated glutathione. So it actually has got all of the ingredients to support detoxification in it. So it supports both our phase 1 and our phase 2 detoxification, which is what we want to do. And I always say to people, if that's one thing that you do, if you just do one thing, you do that one thing, then that is really going to help with emptying your bucket. I actually don't know price per day, what that works out at, Sarah, but it isn't a very expensive product. And that's one of the things that has to be a deciding factor. Certain formulations like liposomal works out the price per day to be really quite expensive, which is prohibitive to some individuals. Whereas the product that we formulated is very much geared towards a one take home detoxification, support your bucket. So if you do nothing else, let's start with that.
Absolutely. And someone was interested in how the connection between detoxification and tinnitus.
So tinnitus is something that we've been talking a lot more about in recent couple of years. Why? Because it falls into this post-COVID group of symptoms. Now, tinnitus is unfortunately one condition which, unless you've had it, which I have to say I never have, worked with lots of clients with it, but I have seen people break down in tears with the effect that tinnitus has had. Unless you've had it, you don't realise how life-affecting it can be. Tinnitus is one of the drivers of tinnitus, I should say, is neuroinflammation. And again, this is what we're seeing in post-COVID. Hence why, although it's not saying all tinnitus is post-COVID, but this is what we're seeing in post-COVID. Hence why it's received quite a lot more attention in the last couple of years, because more people have been affected and therefore more people are visiting the doctor with what can I do? Inflammation is a pro-inflammatory response within the body. So we've got a bit of a catch-22 scenario. Inflammation drives oxidation, and oxidation drives more inflammation. In a nutshell, oxidation is just cell damage. So the more of either of those that we've got in our body, the more that it will drive the other one forward. So if tinnitus is a neuroinflammatory response and oxidation drives inflammation, toxicity drives oxidation. And toxicity can also, in a vulnerable individual, go back to our sort of genetics, toxicity can also drive, that is one of the mechanisms of it. Like I said, tinnitus is actually very complex, but I picked it out because, do you know what? It's one that there's very few things available for people to support them.
Okay, and one last question. Somebody asked if it's safe to have houseplants in the bedroom.
So I was advised, now I'm not, right, okay, if you ask any of my close friends, Green Fingered and Joe Gamble don't come out of your mouth close together. So I am not a plant expert here. In around my room, so there's 7 in here with me. Most of them have got little brown leaves at the end of them, so maybe, you know, not doing quite so well as I would like them to. I've always been told, because plants don't photosynthesize at night, keep them out of the bedroom. So I typically have plants in our living space. Now, one thing I do have in our bedroom, which is good from an oxygenation point of view, is the Himalayan salt lamps. Now, when you turn them on, they heat up. They release O2 ions. So what I typically do is, we've got them in all the bedrooms, and whilst I would discourage you using them later, like when you're trying to get to sleep, because although it's a beautiful dull light, for melatonin synthesis, we should sleep in the dark. But for example, if you're reading at night or getting yourself ready, a Himalayan salt lamp is a much gentler light on our eyeballs and pineal glands, and therefore that is still a way to get oxygen in your bedrooms, but without the photosynthesis. But if I've got that wrong and they do photosynthesize at night, please correct me, because like I said, human biology is my expertise, and I never did so good at school.
Yeah. So I'd just like to thank you for taking some time out today to discuss those things with us. For anyone listening, you can try out some of those formulas, like I say, by speaking to the nutrition advisors to help you choose. Or also there is a offer on our website at the moment, which I think is buy 3 get 1 free. So you can go on the website and you should be able to access that as well. So thanks very much for joining us, and just get in touch if you have any questions. Thanks
Thanks.
very much, Jo.
Bye bye.